Dear colleagues, friends, hello. I'm glad to welcome you. I'd like to first use this opportunity to tell you a few words about the Diplomatic Academy, one of the core universities where high-level diplomats are trained. Whoever has an international posting in the ministry goes through the academy. It has a long history of over 90 years and a wealth of experience. We have to pay a lot of attention to dealing with information in our profession because that's what we work with mostly. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is like a big brain where you have thousands and thousands of brilliant people who process information every day. They read it, they digest it, they process it, and summarize it for the highest public officials. The Academy does continuous professional development and reskilling for diplomats across a wide array of subjects. Today, I'll be focusing on working with information. I'll be speaking about countering unreliable information based on our international experience and the diplomatic toolkit. I would like to also thank the organizers for the invitation to speak to this fine audience, including some international participation. I'm glad to see our guests from other countries, since it's only together that we can counter fakes, misinformation, lies, and all other malicious activities that we face, well, every day. As you wake up, that's the moment where your mind literally becomes the battlefield for our time and attention, our vitality, contested for by organizations, corporations, and countries. What we read on the news, what toothpaste we select when we shop, are many decisions, and there are very many actors who want to influence them. This is why it is so important to be aware of digital hygiene and information literacy, some rules to make our lives more secure and happier. I would like to once again appreciate the organizers, Autonomous Nonprofit, Dialogue Regions, New Media School. Thank you to my ministry for sending me here. We heard from acting rector of the academy, Vice-Rector for Legal Affairs, Mr. Shitkov, who gave you some background on the academy, our fundamental principles when it comes to working with information. We look up to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, first and foremost, in this area. The challenge of disinformation and fakes has taken on a global scale. It existed in different forms since ancient times, but with the advancement of technology and communications, this challenge has been elevated to a new level. We tend to think of fakes as lies, but that is not always the case. You can take a nugget of truth, take it out of context, and repackage it to give it a completely different meaning, even if it's some innocuous fact. But it's not innocuous and innocent. This can stir panic in stock exchanges, bank runs, heart attacks, and people who were scammed out of their entire wealth. This type of scams have become international now, operating across borders and employing a lot of deception and fakes as well. An important feature of fakes is that they target your emotions. At the Academy, we have modules that pertain to this in all of our programs, BA, MA programs, bachelor's and master's, and upskilling courses. There are courses that teach information skills, including countering mis and disinformation and fakes. As we deliver these courses, we always underscore that you have to have calmness of mind and rely on common sense. Fakes try to throw you off balance, tap your emotions, and destabilize you as a person or society as a whole. You need to have a sober view on this. New digital means of delivery did indeed elevate fakes to a new level of scale. They now can target entire societies and pose a threat to national security. I'm sure you are well aware of this. Here is case in point. To illustrate that it's a global challenge, think back to 2016. Fakes were on the rise, and they almost toppled President Trump based on the alleged ties to Russia. And it was really hard to disprove these inaccurate reports. Given the new scale, we can classify fakes as digital weapons, and it operates in a hybrid manner. It affects infrastructure, society as a whole, and individuals. Some of our adversaries tend to focus on physical security, servers, communication channels, things like that, hardware. But in Russia, we have always also focused on what's inside these machines, what information circulates there, how it affects our worldview, well-being, and health. Given the rise of neural networks and generative AI, it's almost impossible to discern between truth and lies. This challenge has now transcended national borders. It's become truly international because it can disrupt trust in between countries. Back to emotions. They're always a component. Information warfare is offensive in nature. When we train diplomats and other people, because it has relevance for your day-to-day life as well, it's important to enable people to detect techniques that are used in fakes, how they're packaged, how they're delivered. Again, we look up to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its Department for Information and Mass Media, led by Maria Zakharova, who is undertaking a major effort in this area. Of course, in close cooperation with our foreign representative offices. In the embassy, the entire station do this first thing in the morning. They read news. But it's now done round the clock, not just in the mornings. At the headquarters, at the embassies and consulates, we are now monitoring the news feeds continuously. This effort has several areas where we focus on. We look at the information space globally and in individual countries. International cooperation and a sense of support is very important here. I'm talking about our sister nations and friendly countries. Such cooperation is very important to ensure early warning against informational attacks and dissemination of fakes. So first thing that we're doing is continuous monitoring. There are conventional techniques like, well, reading the news, but then there are some advancements in technology as well. We have dedicated software to aggregate information and data. We are working on setting up databases to apply AI to, then to trace the origins of such information and its effects. That's what we're working on today, and that's what we're going to have as a very relevant component of this effort in the future. The second line of effort is to respond quickly to different fabrications and fakes. You cannot afford to ignore such fabrications because they take on a life of their own, start to snowball and expand, take on different details and opinions, which means that the state, the government, or any ministry or agency needs to take a stance, fair and square, and quickly. In this sense, the purpose of a fake is to throw you off balance, to distract you, so that bad actors can perpetrate their illicit activities while the person is disoriented, which means, in turn, that we need to help people regain their presence of mind. It's like a sleight of hand. You're distracted by a bright napkin or a bright gesture, and the actual sleight of hand, the trick, happens where you're not looking. If you regain focus, you can act rationally again. The next important line of effort is record keeping, where we store all instances of propaganda, fakes, and misinformation. If you come from academia, you'll agree with me and confirm. A decade ago, I was writing a thesis. I had to cite references. Now, I try to use the links, and many of the websites are no longer available. So, storing and record keeping is as relevant as ever, because such information campaigns tend to be cleaned up afterwards. You have to build this historic database over a long time, because there are some countries who want to revise history very actively, to change some minor details or correct the narrative. Let me give you an example from personal experience. We were drafting an international document to be signed. It's taking a long time because it was a big, important document. So it took almost a decade. It was a very important subject. Then we had to compare notes with our partners and saw that there were discrepancies in our texts, even if we had been discussing it and approving and coordinating. But a lot of small edits and revisions added up over the years. So the two texts diverged in the end, just like a pile of sand that you add one second and the other, and then it's a whole heap. We had to redo the approval and coordination. Any such small amendment can be critical for your perception. Can you clearly recall what was happening 10 years ago? And then little by little, the whole picture shifts. Our opponents have this long-term view. Case in point, our victory in the Second World War, a major historic event for our country, and other nations try to chip away at this memory, revise it, starting out with small details. Our public authorities, the academy, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, are doing a lot to safeguard this historical memory. This includes remembrance events, maintaining the monuments, passing on the knowledge to new generations, which is absolutely vital, because given the efforts of our opponents, this memory can get eroded over the years. It's one of our tasks as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to prevent that. Generations change, and if you lose this memory, it's really hard to restore it, so you have to pass on the baton. Falsification of history is a major challenge for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well. Which brings me to awareness-raising activities. It's a big area of effort, which is often omitted. We talk a lot about countering misinformation, whereas the best way to do this is to tell and spread the truth, so that the information space is saturated with expert opinions and truthful facts, which should squeeze out any opportunities for contrived allegations or misrepresentations. Tending to our historic memory and maintaining it is very important. We started a special section on our website in 2017. It's called Anti-Fakes, Countering Disinformation. This name, anti-fake, was mostly coined or popularized, at least, by our diplomats for this part of the website. It's really curious sometimes to look back and compare what was on the agenda. There were fakes about Russian hackers, election interference, coronavirus pandemic. Well, then, of course, you have the special military operation and the recent years. You need to be multi-channel in this effort. These are different formats. Short posts on social media, that's what you start with, but the things that you have to convey and explain are so big that you cannot condense it into a small post. So you have other formats as well. Long reads, videos, infographics. At our academy, we have a dedicated course on that. We keep it up to date and integrate it into all our activities for all our students. Each of our graduates have to have this skill to convey an idea and information both as a long read and as a short post, just like you had on Twitter or X, banned in Russia. The length of text that you have to work with is different, so you need to be able to, well, condense it and summarize it to what's most important. Takes constant practice. Technology is advancing. It's gotten to a new level. We now live in the era of social media and AI. It's interesting to note how different platforms structure the way they present information. Each social media have their own algorithms. We've seen this firsthand, where algorithms were configured against the opponent. Some information was virtually removed from public view on social media through algorithms. It wasn't deleted or erased, but it was never seen. It's another big problem, and we need technology-based techniques to address it. This is part of our educational curricula as well. You cannot be either or, a STEM person or a humanity person. You need both. You need to have the know-how in technology, maths, some coding maybe, foreign languages, all complementing each other. A new era of classics in education where you're a well-rounded person. If you have gaps in this knowledge, you're vulnerable to propaganda and to manipulations by big tech companies.
What's important in the work of a foreign ministry of any country is to study this methodology of how media work, how information is presented. Hence, our efforts in the Foreign Ministry have a big significance internationally. And today, I would like to talk to you about this for this particular reason and have a Q&A session, if you wish, because such events are for experience exchange, allowing us to improve what we do, allowing us all. Over these 8 years, think of it, it's almost a decade when this challenge of fakes and disinformation has risen its ugly head. It was always there, but now it's climaxed. So what we do in the ministry now, social networks site, we put over 5,000 debunking pieces. What's important, this information has to be translated into other languages to make sure we are heard and we can inform our colleagues that they are running the risk of facing this information. All this needs to come together. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a record setter of sorts because we have 12 platforms where we are present daily and vigorously. And new formats are being tried every day. And we, as an educational institution of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, follow the suit and show our students what can be done. The new audience is coming on stage, accustomed to new formats like TikTok, and the government and the ministries need to consider entering those platforms, speaking the language that is easy for their target audiences. So some people need large official reports, and some want a small funny meme, and both of them are a communication tool, and none of them can be discarded because this would lose a significant stratum of people, and we're now fighting for each person, for their attention, and there can be no things that are too little in this regard. So the new formats of conveying information, when you chop up long video films into small reels, is something that we did in the ministry in New York and Vienna at the UN and other international organizations platforms. And the main thing is to be heard here. The new challenge altogether, globally and for Russia in particular, is the rapid development of neural networks and AI that generates not just fakes but deep fakes of such scale and quality that are very hard to be recognized as such and are confused with reality. So this is not something new. It's been around for several years, but today it's reached such a level that it's very hard to see through it. You will remember the example of a of the Pope in a white duffel coat. So it was so realistic that it took special technical means to find out that it was fake. There are platforms where you can upload images or videos and using special technology. So looking at the compression attributes, for example, what was added while photoshopping the document. So such tools can tell you whether the image or video is genuine or not. Another interesting tool that we often cite as an example in our classes is when you need to understand whether this image has been used in the media or not. You upload it to a special service to see where it has been used. All right, and it's often found that this may not be the primary source, or it has been manipulated or redacted in some sort. So I'm not going to go into product placement at the moment. You can easily find those tools. So by simply browsing for them, making queries. So what else about AI and new associated challenges? It's clear that regulation is a must here, but what kind remains a moot point, because there are certain countries that have succeeded in promoting this technology, and they are in no hurry to introduce any constraints. For example, early next year, Paris saw a new technology summit, and the resulting declaration was not signed by everyone. The US and the UK were among those who didn't. Why? Because they do not want to assume any new restrictions. The experience of Russia may be very useful because we have industries that are very self-regulated. When companies look at how ethical and compliant the use of this or that technology is, this model can be used internationally. But as you can see from the example I gave, it's not always easy to reach an agreement on that. So if you speak the truth but no one hears you, you can say that you don't actually say it. If each country had a well-developed system of mass media presence in the social media, including at the level of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or government as a whole, then look at our Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation. Over 1,300 accounts are active in the social networks. This is a huge amount of work being handled by a multitude of people. This is a confrontation with disinformation and lies using the truth, because the fakes that we are facing are virus-like. When people hear are exposed to this information, they start feeling anxiety. They become disbalanced. Like when people fall ill, they become contagious, right? And in this case, the information virus gets to them, urging them to spread it. So all these calls, all these mottos that are generated, this technology works in the irrational area, where the person lacks this inner critic or the sense of control. What is the countermeasure? A proper presentation of the true information, because if the person is excited, they don't want or don't have the time to recheck this information. So it's important to show them what brought them to this state, so that they can get back to rationally assessing the situation. When we discuss such topics with our colleagues, and we have quite a number of classes around this topic, colleagues share their best practices in the classroom. So what kind of countermeasures are available? So the one battle is the one that never happened. And one of the disinformation counteracting tool is prevention. You can often hear when the Ministry of Defense or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs announce a provocation that this and this is going to happen, and then nothing happens. Why? Because there was a warning, and there was no point in organizing this negative event. Another important tool is speaking the truth promptly. And here what we try to do is for our students to learn from the practical cases, to handle case studies. And international cooperation and collaboration is very important, like the meeting we're having today, or that international fact-checking initiative. Such formats build true confidence and trust